Martino, I live at 10 Winter Road in Pine Hill. On Friday, May 4th, at 1:52 p.m., I had to call 911 to place an emergency call due to your Borough of Pine Hills fire chief / code enforcement officer showing up at my home. This was not, and I repeat, not an official business visit. This was him taking matters into his own hands. He used a borough vehicle to block my driveway, at which time prevented me and my guests from leaving my home. He made his way to my front door. My guest proceeded to open the front door. As she had her head and shoulders peeking out through the front door, he continued to bang on my glass door. She asked him what he wanted. He said he wanted to speak to the lady that lives here. She proceeded up my steps in my living room to get me. Sorry, I'm getting a little upset. Okay. I went down, opened my door, went outside. Meanwhile, he grabbed at my door and started to yell at my guests, "And I will speak to you too." He had no right, none whatsoever. Okay? I consider this harassment, threatening, and intimidating. I call for you, as mayor and council, at this point in time, to suspend him as a public employee of this borough. No ifs, ands, or buts. If not, my lawyer will be contacting this borough. Okay? I will not allow any public employee of this borough to harass, intimidate, and threaten my guest at my home. None whatsoever. Mr. Mayor, at this point in time, I respectfully ask you to step down as mayor. All this proceeds back to your actions of allowing firefighters and borough equipment at your home to roof your home. He was there for no other reason. None whatsoever. I am also, he's not here tonight, respectfully asking Mr. Warrington to step down as fire commissioner and on council, effective immediately. His investigation as commissioner on the board of the fire department was nothing but biased. He had Fred Constantino and William Dukes do the investigation, both with extreme ties to this community and to the fire department. One who sits on the board, one who doesn't. You cannot tell me that wasn't a biased investigation. It should have been done by an outside agency. His excuse was to save the taxpayers' money. Well, Mr. Mayor used our borough equipment and firefighters to roof his house. That was taxpayers' money. We paid for that fire truck. We paid for every nook and cranny of that truck. At this time, I ask that he step down on this council and as commissioner on the fire department. I feel that was short and sweet. And I also ask Mr. Mayor, Mr. Patterson, that you understand at this point in time, I would respectfully ask Ruth McCollum to take over as mayor effective immediately as council president, so we can begin a fresh start and help this community rise above all this. I feel she's the only one capable of running this township fairly and safely. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to come forward?
John Schmidt, Gloucester City, New Jersey. A few questions about things. But first, I want to speak individually as a public official myself. Mayor, I'm calling on you to do what we all took an oath to do as public officials. We take an oath Included in that sacred oath is the phrase, under the authority of the people. That's what allows us to serve. In my opinion, you have violated that public trust. And what Ms. Martino said, I agree. I think you should step down and allow the council president to step in as mayor pro tempore for this town. With that said, I have a few questions. Well, I guess these questions are directed to Mayor Green and Councilwoman McCollum. I don't believe Mr. Robb or Mr. Jackson were here at the time of these events. I believe on or about November 18th, 2011, the Borough of Pine Hill entered into a settlement agreement with Paul and Heather Greco in the matter of Greco versus Pine Hill. Included in that settlement agreement, which I overheard about a month or two ago from Jennifer, your clerk, and I received it. There were two settlement agreements included in this. And part of the settlement agreement was that former chief, then Chief Ken Cheeseman, was going to write a letter to the pension board stating that Pine Hill did not oppose Officer Greco's application for a pension. I just want to ask, is that correct?
I don't have the agreement in front of me.
Ms. McCollum?
I don't know for sure exactly what was said. I know that in closed session there was some discussion, but what the action was and what was in the final legal agreement, I cannot guess
Does the
on that.
clerk administrator review?
Unfortunately, I'm not aware.
Okay. That language wasn't there. It was one of the agreements that Pine Hill made, that Ken Cheeseman would write a letter. I let some time go by. I was working on some other things. I followed up about 3 weeks ago, sent a request to the Department of the Treasury. Background information with the Greco case, with the settlement, and requested the letter sent by Ken Cheeseman between, I went back a few days before the settlement and a few days after his retirement as fire chief, that was sent during that time period to the pension board. The custodian records for the Department of the Treasury responded within the statutory 7 business days and said that she had forwarded she said my request was a valid request. She forwarded it to the Division of Pensions and Benefits. They searched their files, and she said that my request was being denied because they searched their files. No letter was ever received, therefore no record exists. Pine Hill made a settlement agreement. That was included in the settlement agreement. Pine Hill never followed through on that aspect of the settlement agreement. I would like to know why not. Is it because there's something against the Greco family? And if because you didn't follow through with the settlement agreement, does that mean the whole thing is null and void? And would Mr. Greco be going back to work as a cop now? Because the whole thing, once you breach that agreement, it's a breach. And also, if you breached it, can Mr. and Mrs. Greco then turn around and sue you for every single personnel file, medical record that I obtained of them? There's no answer to that question.
You don't see one coming.
From an attorney,
Wow.
sweet.
I would like to know, maybe you can discuss this over the next 2 weeks. Because Mr. Cheeseman never sent this, where does this leave the borough now? And what vulnerability? That's my question to the mayor and to the council president. I would ask you to look into it. Finally, one more question I have. Been in the back burner for some time. You have a special agent in your police department, John McGuire, retired police officer at Pine Hill. I have seen pictures of him on accident scenes, direct traffic, doing many of the jobs a police officer would do. So why is it that he's out on 66 2/3 pension because he can't do police work, but still is continuing to do police work?
Not aware of him doing any police work. He's doing clerical work attached to the police department as a special agent. or excuse me,
Clerical work, would that be directing traffic, setting up cones, when there's an accident or construction going on? Clerical work would be paperwork. Oh. See, we're not getting any answers here. Let's go back to good old Barney and Fred days, huh? On the Fred days.
anyone else wishing to step forward?
Heather Greco, 29 West Maple Avenue, Lindenwold, New Jersey, 08021. Now, obviously, everyone knows that our reputation between all of us is a little bruised, but I've moved beyond that. However, does anyone know where the fire chief truck is tonight? No one knows where it is? No? Okay. Well, this is my problem. The guest that Mrs. Martino spoke about, who could have been seriously injured by a glass door, happened to be me. I answered the door at the Martino residence, repeatedly asked Mr. Greer what he needed, why he was there. He proceeded to bang on the door. I was told to shut my mouth. I was told that regardless of whether or not I intended to defuse the situation, I stood at the top of Miss Martino's steps. When Mr. Greer demanded to speak with me, I simply stated I had nothing to say. Nothing at all. And he proceeded to scream and yell, and he came there looking for a fight. So I went down the steps. I told my husband, who surprisingly was at Mrs. Martino's as well, who was talking to John Greer, that we should just diffuse the situation and go inside. And I was told by Mr. Greer to shut my mouth. Really? This is the way you're going to allow a fire chief to treat residents, guests of residents, and nobody knows where his truck is when he's using your vehicle on non-official business to threaten, intimidate, and harass people because he feels the need to continuously justify his actions, whether they're wrong or not. That's acceptable? No one took the vehicle away? This man's carrying around a weapon? I had the prosecutor's office show up at my house randomly and never come back again. Why? Mr. Greer worked there. The prosecutor's office wouldn't even call any of my attorneys back. And you know what? The odd thing is they've never been back. If I was a wanted woman, I'd be in jail. Okay? But they never came back. That was John Greer calling a favor to his buddies. Okay? A month ago, because I volunteer for animal shelters and take in abused animals as I have for several years, I had John Greer's neighbor show up to my house questioning me as to why I had 10 additional dogs at my residence that were 4-week-old puppies because I was exceeding Lindenwald's code, okay? It's none of John Greer's neighbor's business. It's none of John Greer's business what I do. And legally, the animals weren't mine. But why is it that I'm getting harassed by John Greer? Because of his distaste? He's a hothead. I don't really care what he does in his own time. But using your vehicle and having people come to my home and residents' home and continuously harassing me is unacceptable. And it's appalling to me that he still has the borough vehicle to do as he wants. Does anyone have any suggestions about removing the vehicle from his premises at this point? Or is he going to be allowed to use it for personal use to harass people?
The vehicle does not belong to the Borough of Pine Hill. The vehicle belongs to the Pine Hill Fire Commission.
Then why does he use the fire commission's vehicle on official business for code enforcement?
I'm not aware of him doing that.
Well, he did. He issued violations while using the fire chief's truck. And why is it that we were told when we signed complaints against Mr. Greer that the borough administrator was made aware of the situation about him having the vehicle, if it was none of the borough administrator's business? Nobody knows? I don't think that anybody realizes the severity of the situation. You have a man that's legally allowed to carry a weapon, going around here and bullying people. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting that he still has a position here. And you can bet if he was still code enforcement in my town, we'd have a real big problem. But if you honestly think that John Greer is going to be Pine Hill's dirty little secret, I will see to it that it won't be. I have professionals working on this, and I have people looking at this from every single avenue available. So just know that this is not gonna be a secret and this is not gonna be kept quiet because nobody's gonna treat me that way in front of people and get away with it.
Anyone else wishing to step forward?
Good evening again. Mr. Greer and I was not aware of this. I attended the Board of Fire Commissioners meeting last Thursday night to hear the report, which I had hoped that would be a report that was, done by the fire service. It wasn't. It was done by two hacks. After the meeting, I was in the parking lot with Ms. Martino and Ms. Greco and a few others, talking as we have a right to do, afforded to us by the Constitution. And we were there for a while. Ms. Greco leaves shortly thereafter. Ms. Martino pulls out her vehicle. And Mr. Greer had pulled into the fire station. I'm sure you're all familiar with the fire station. Was parked next to that trailer at the far end of the parking lot. The second they back up, he pretty much floors it, almost hits their car. Backs me in, little did I know at the time. And I've been reflecting on what he asked me. He asked me, and I quote, "John, I have a question about Christianity." That kind of took me off guard. It's an unusual question. Walk over to Chuck. I said, "Yeah, I got a question for you." I walk over, and he says, "I'm reading the Bible. I got through Genesis, and I'm reading Exodus, but I don't understand it. I don't understand the bloodshed in Exodus." Now, of course, conversations, one of them I had with Mrs. Greco, and is okay to share this information, is that when she was at the police station, she had a conversation with Chief Winters, who's told her this story. She felt threatened. She knows Mr. Greer more than I do. Apparently has known him for 12 years, and knows him not to be a religious man. I think both individuals had some concerns, and the chief actually decided to put extra patrols on Miss Martinez Street over the weekend.
Yeah, one.
Because of Mr. Greer. Absolutely, there has been criminal charges filed against Mr. Greer, and they are pending. I think until the judicial process plays out and everyone has their day in court, guilty, not guilty, that's up to a court of law to decide. But I do think Mr. Greer should be suspended until the outcome of the investigation, the judicial process takes place for the integrity of government. That often is the case when public officials are charged with a criminal charge. They will be, suspended from work pending the outcome of the judicial process. So I think that should be done immediately. As I've been listening tonight and speaking with myself, I have a pretty simple question, and I've done this before. So, Mr. Jackson, I'll start with you. Do you believe Mr. Greer's actions were appropriate?
We're
Yes
not
or
going
no?
to discuss any personnel matters.
Excuse me, I don't want to, I want to
We're
speak.
not going to
to you like
discuss
this.
any personnel matters here this evening. You know that. We're not going to discuss personnel matters. It all goes into closed
Okay.
session. You know that as well as I do.
Then when I discuss personnel matters, I'll start with Mr. Jackson again. Do you believe fire department, volunteer or not, compensated or not, on the mayor's roof, do you think that was appropriate, yes or no?
And you don't have to answer Mr. Jackson if you don't.
I have no comment.
Council President?
Come on, Ruth, be honest.
Mr. Rob?
I think I would like to reserve, John, until I get more information on one side. I would like to hear the other side. I would like to get more information on this, and then with the advice of counsel, and I'm sure that he will let us know the goods and the bads, and I will wait until that time.
Oh, I'm getting up again.
Thank you for your answer. Mr. Rob?
I did not see any issue there. I don't know if I know all the facts, so I'm going to reserve my opinion also.
The other thing, I'm going to bring it up here. just to clarify, some members of this council have just been, and I know this has been said, that I do not come to Pine Hill Council meetings because I have an issue with Mr. Warren. I come to Pine Hill Council meetings because and over some things, gratification of other things, is that there's some things in Pine Hill that are not being done properly. Do I wouldn't say dislike, do I disagree with the approach of some of the officials in the town? Absolutely. Do I agree with some of them? Yes, I do. What I do is try to promote good government, transparent, open government, and that's why I come to Pine Hill, because Pine Hill needs a lot of help, a lot of help. You brought in a decent clerk and administrator, that's a good start. Okay? You have a police chief who is very professional. I think he's trying to make that department professional and non-political. So you're making some progress, but you need more to go. I wanted to end on that note to clear the air. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to step forward?
Linda Martino, 10 Woodrow Road, Pine Hill, New Jersey. I have a question. You as American citizens, not as council, not as mayor, if a man showed up at your front door known to be able to carry a weapon and started harassing you and intimidating you, how would you feel as an American citizen? Would you feel scared to leave your home? That's the way I was all weekend. That chief protected me all weekend. Not one of you. The chief of police, a man who I watched grow up and knew his father. He made sure I had patrols to protect my home from a fire chief, a man that is known to carry a gun. My fiance is law enforcement in Burlington County. You have a severe problem. He's code enforcement of this town. He goes door to door to every residence and finds something wrong. He had no right to come to my home. Not one. And you wonder where the Barrow SUV was? I'll tell you where it was Friday, blocking my driveway, so me and Paul and Heather Greco couldn't leave if we wanted to. Now I suggest you do something immediately. Yes, John was correct. Maybe he should be suspended. But I feel he should be terminated. Because if he showed up at your house and your wife answered the door and he had a gun, what would you do? Miss Balicki, what would you do? Mr. Mayor, what would you do? Mr. Patterson, what would you do? Ruth, an honest answer, what would you do? Mr. Jackson, what would your wife do?
I'll call the police.
This is a public employee of your borough. A chief of your fire department. You want to talk about integrity? He made this borough look shameful. Channel 10 is going to make you even look worse. And if you think I'm going to stop here, you got something coming. The Attorney General, the Comp Commission, everybody I can go to come down on you as mayor and council, because he is your employee. How do I know you can send him to my door? I don't. The chief of police had to talk to my fiance, because he is law enforcement. He does carry a weapon. He wanted to make sure Tony would let him handle the situation. Tony will, because Tony abides by the law. He's sworn to protect and serve. That fire chief took an oath to protect and serve his community. What if my house caught on fire? Would that fire department come out at this point in time? supporters who are backing me 100%. I suggest I have an answer on his suspension by tomorrow morning, or my attorney will be serving you with a lawsuit, and I will bury this town. Bury it. And that's a promise. You think your settlement with Paul Greco was a lot? I'll go for more than that. Your settlement with Harvest? I'll go for more than that. Donna May case, that's still up and pending. How much money have you wasted on self-agendas in the past 3 years when it comes to settlement? That's all taxpayers' money. That's not your money. That's our hard-earned money. I suggest you start taking care of this community the way it should be, by stepping down, Mr. Mayor, and letting the council president take over. Because I'm not done. I am far from done. And that's a sworn promise.
Cat News, 3300 Main Road, Franklinville, New Jersey. You said that fire truck does not come under the borough.
That's correct.
Is that paid for with taxpayer money?
Yeah, I'm sure it is, yes, ma'am.
Then wouldn't that be the borough?
No, it's the final fire commission.
Well, I'm sure in the long run, it still comes back that taxpayers' money is paying for it.
I didn't say taxpayer money wasn't paying for it, I'd say
And
it's
Ms.
not.
Martino, I
Under the borough.
really hate to disillusion you, but it was in the paper that one of the borough employees had been stealing money. Unfortunately, I personally went to one of the council people sitting up there, told them about it. They did absolutely nothing. These people come in, pick up their packets, pick up their checks each month, and I don't think one of them does their own homework on anything. They should all step down.
Anybody else wishing to come forward? Seeing no one, may I have a motion to close the floor to the public?
Motion to close.
Motion made by Councilman Jaxel, second.
Second.
Second by Councilman Rob. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, so ordered. Does council have anything else for discussion this evening? If not, may I have a motion for adjournment?
No executive.
Motion made by Councilman Rob,
Too scared to.
second by Councilman Jaxel.
There's your answer.
Any
That
questions
was
on the
reading the
motion?
column I wrote too.
All in favor?
Aye.
Gotcha.
Any opposed?
Nothing.
Ayes have it, so ordered.
Have fun with Fox tomorrow morning.